Greetings and welcome back. In this video, we are going to actually begin working on our thread dispatch system. Lee, what are we going to be doing specifically?
All right, well, our dispatch system works in two pieces. We have a dispatcher. That is the bit of code that runs on every update and looks at its priority queue and determines whether or not there's any Unity dispatches that it needs to deal with. Now, the second part of it are the dispatches themselves. I'm calling this Unity dispatch. It's a class, so it's an instance class of basically a little bit of functionality as well as a little bit of signaling all lumped together. So it's kind of like a message, but it's also has functionality. Its purpose is we're going to create these things and we're going to tell it what functionality that they're supposed to do or what they're supposed to do when they're run, but they're also going to be the mechanism in which we can use to signal back the worker thread when that functionality has been completed.
Okay.
So this video, we're going to start with the Unity dispatch class itself. And it's going to be based off of an interface. So we'll create its interface, then we'll create the Unity dispatch class. So let's create a folder to put these in. So I'll go over to threading, add new folder, and I will call this Unity dispatch. And I'm going to create an interface. Which we'll call Unity dispatch. And we'll create a class called Unity dispatch. Go into the interface, do some cleanup. And let's check the test worker thread. See how I'm naming these? Code threading, okay. Alright, so there's our interface. I'm going to make this a public interface. Now, we need 4 things to enforce with our interface. First one, it'll be a bool. We're going to call it isCompleted. I almost spelled that right. Not quite.
That's okay.
It's only going to have a getter. We're not going to have a setter for it. So it's just going to query something. We'll have 3 methods, one being run. This is the method that's going to be responsible for running the functionality that is in our Unity dispatch.
Okay.
And then we're going to have a wait method with 2 overloads. Our first one is going to be our default wait, which is going to have a default time period between polling, or how often it's going to do a check to see if the run functionality has been completed. The other one is going to be a user-defined interval. So you'll be able to set how often that or how often to update the check.
Okay.
So that will have an integer that we're going to pass into it. So that will be the functionality for our dispatch. To use it, we need to go to Unity dispatch class, do our obligatory initial cleanup, set our class to public, and tell it to enforce the Unity dispatch interface and implement members. I want to implement all of them. property. All right, so there's our isComplete property. And then I just killed the throw exceptions. All right. Here we'll use a protected set. Now, we need inside of our Unity dispatch an additional field. This is going to be a protected action. I'm going to call it my action. Now, this is where the functionality that our dispatch lives. So, if you remember from before, when we were messing with the worker threads, we can pass in a function or a func with arguments that we can pass in and return stuff if we need to. Actions or similar, they're functionality that do not have return types. We could also pass in arguments here, but in this case, we're just going to pass in functionality with no arguments, and we're not going to get anything back. So we're going to use an action in this case. Inside of our run method, we're going to deal with, well, let's do a constructor first. I don't want to deal with run yet until we have a constructor. So let's make a public Unity dispatch. Now this will take an argument. And what is it going to take? It's going to take an action. I'm going to call this action my action. And inside we will set my action equal to my action. Uppercase to, or the lowercase to the uppercase. We're also going to set is completed to false. Not required, but I'm just going to do it anyways, just in case we try to run the same one, or just for completion. I'm rambling. I'm not going to use it because I know it's going to be false. Forget it.
Okay.
Redundant code. Of course, I'm changing on the fly, and you know my rule about that.
Yeah.
So that'll bite me at some point.
Yep.
So to run the functionality inside of the run method when run gets called, all we do is call my action, add the parentheses at the end of it, and that will execute the functionality inside of my action. I'm going to set is completed equal to true, and that will handle all we need for run. Now, how do we deal with wait? And what is wait? Wait is a method that I want to be able to call from inside of one of our worker threads. And then it's just going to cause that worker thread to stop running until it's ready to go again. Simply achieved by using a while loop. All we got to do is say while not is complete. Go ahead and sleep for a while. So we use thread.sleep. For our default, I'm going to use a time of 1 millisecond. So it's going to sleep for 1 millisecond and then do the check over again. So this will consistently run, but I only do the check every millisecond. For our sleep with a user-defined interval, it's going to be the same thing, but instead of 1 millisecond, we're going to use whatever interval is passed in.
All right.
So this will basically sleep. So if I were to pass in, say, a number of 5,000, it would cause the thread to sleep for 5 seconds and then check again for completion. And it would continue to do that every 5 seconds. And we'll see how that works later when we get to the testing. So I'm going to go ahead and build that out. That's all we need for the interface in the dispatch. This is, compared to a lot of the stuff we've done up in the R&D up to now, this stuff is really pretty cake at this point. So nothing too complicated,
right,
except maybe the anonymous delegates of passing in an action. That's a little bit tricky until you get your head around it. But that'll be it for this video. In the next video, we're going to handle writing the dispatcher
okay.
part of the system.
So that'll wrap up this video. Thanks a lot for watching.